Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today we'll discuss week 30 of 2022. Let's get going. Well, we were finally lucky enough to have a week that had some rain, so woohoo! Week 30 was a little bit different than a lot of weeks that we've had coming up now. The first part of the week was super hot, just like every other week before that. But then about midweek, right around end of Wednesday, early Thursday, the clouds started moving in, started raining on Friday, and we got quite a bit of rain. We ended up with about 2.5 inches overall, so that was good. It's still cloudy going into week 31. It's going to be pretty nice. It's going to be humid, of course, because of all the, the rain in the ground, that sort of stuff or whatever. We'll have one day, I think, this whole week that's going to be 100. And other than that, it's going to be low 90s. So we're kind of back where we're supposed to be from a temperature standpoint. The problem that I had last week was I got sick. I think it was like Tuesday, and I didn't get out of bed until like Saturday. So I think I got a really bad sinus infection. So either that or who knows what it was, but I'm almost positive it was a sinus infection. But I'm feeling better now. We did miss our second video last week, so for our regular viewers, I apologize for that, but we're back on schedule. What I would like to do this week is let's take a sort of an overview of all of our gardens, because we're getting to that time of year where our indeterminate varieties of vegetables are starting to phase out. And starting next month, it's going to be time to begin putting in our fall garden. So it's a really fun time of the year, especially when you feel better. So let's take a look at this. Oscar, are you you liking it here? Our new garden cat. He follows me everywhere we go through the gardens. But anyway, say hello to Peoples. Peoples, Oscar Peoples. We have mentioned this on a few different videos of ours, but just to kind of go over it, these butternut squash here, they did really well early, and then the heat got to them. And now, as you can see, after this cool spell, we are starting to get flowers and fruit again. So we've probably gotten, I don't know, 8 or so butternut squash, and they're delicious. We're hoping to get 10 to 15 more before these plants eventually die off, but we'll see if we're lucky or not. They're having a rough time with all kinds of different bugs, and squash bugs are bad, and so are grasshoppers right now. Hopefully the grasshoppers will mellow out a little bit now that we got some rain, so we'll see. The reason I'm up here though to show you is I would like to show you sort of how these cucumbers are thinning out, and we're getting fewer and fewer of the blooms, and even the cucumbers that do come on, they're significantly smaller. They'll come off a little stunted, that sort of stuff, and it's most evident sort of right here in the middle. Now, what we did this year was we got a determinate variety of our pickling cucumbers, and the logic behind that is that our pickling cucumbers, we only have a certain amount of space because with our pickles, we cold water pickle, so we have a refrigerator in the barn that we keep them all in. So we can only get about, I don't know, 80 to 85 jars in that refrigerator, and we have almost made it that way. So right now, our pickling cucumbers have done their job. Our refrigerator is full, and it just so happens they've kind of started dying off. You can see through here and kind of the colorations there on the end. So again, these are a determinate variety, and what that means is they usually will last 3 to 4 months. So we planted these right at the end of April, so we'll call it May. So, for a 3-month cycle, that would put them at the end of July where they would be finished. So they're right on schedule. We'll let these go until they're probably done, to be honest with you. So, and then once they're finished, we'll go through and we're going to grow our cucumbers in a different spot next year, just because these trellis systems, they kind of blocked the stuff behind them. So we've got a better idea for next year. So we'll let these dry out. We'll go through, we'll take down all the trellises. And then at the end of the fall, we'll go through and fill up all of the compost through here. Again, we're going to fill up. We had the idea of, leaving some room here so the chickens couldn't knock the compost out of it and they could still get in there and help us till it up in the fall and things. It just didn't work out. We're gonna have to fill it all the way to the top. Having that much room to where the sun, you know, it creates an issue with the ledge and the sun, and it also, the chickens get in there and they very aggressively scratch, and so they've killed a lot of our plants this year. So you live and you learn. So we're just gonna go through and put, I found some 18-inch chicken wire. So we'll do like we did our garlic beds. We'll just put them on the edges and run chicken wire around the whole outside of them. So, but we can see here, these potatoes are doing really well. I have no idea what the potatoes look like underneath. We'll show you our potatoes in the top garden when we get up that way. They have had a heck of a year. I got a little fun story to share with you when we get up there too, but sticking with where we're at, this is our sweet potatoes, and they have done phenomenal. So once it got warm and they started getting water, and I realized that they needed more water than the rest of the stuff, they have done really well. I did lose a few plants, anybody who watches at the beginning of the year, just because of my ignorance on growing sweet potatoes, but we've gotten through that. That dude is a jerk. Get out of here, Napoleon. Go on, buddy. All right, yep. See, getting all bowed up. All right, so anyway, back over here, these are our slicing cucumbers. And I say it probably at least once a month, but I started gardening because I like cucumber and tomato salad, with tomatoes being my favorite. So I get the indeterminate variety of our slicing cucumbers. That way I start, because we don't eat as many of them, right? You get like 5 or 6 large cucumbers, put those in a salad, and that'll last 3 or 4 days. So every 5 or 6 days, we are getting a large amount of these guys. So our neighbors and our family and stuff are enjoying them. Oh no, look at that. Let's see if you can see him. Let's see if we can get that. Oh, he damped out. Dadgum squash bug in there. Where'd he go? All right, we'll have to, oh, there he is right there. So we'll smash him. All righty. One of those little squash bugs can lay so many eggs. I feel like my whole life is doing nothing but trimming and smashing bugs. But our tomatoes over here, they have started producing. We are picking tomatoes off of these about every 2 to 3 days. This guy in here got a little bit of blight when I was sick. That's kind of what I want to show you. I haven't come out here yet and taken care of the garden. So there's going to be a lot of things that I wasn't able to get to. So I can show you what it looks like. So in here, right, with that rain that we got, you can see this discoloration. This got blight. So what I'll do today is I'll go through and I'll trim off all of these big places that have the blight on them, and then I'll spray that down with hydrogen peroxide, and that will be ready to go. This tomato plant over here are cucumbers killed. You can see how they got in there. So more than likely, I'll just go ahead and pull that out. I guess I should have put, now, like, you know, in retrospect, I could have put the tomatoes with the indeterminate cucumbers, and that would have been a better idea. But you live and you learn. Anyway, moral of the story is we are still getting a bunch of these indeterminate variety of the cucumbers. And you can see that how this butternut is just, since the weather change, it has just taken full advantage of it. All of these, there's another squash bug. You see him right there? We'll do the same thing. We'll just smash him and toss him. So, and then, but overall, these things are looking pretty good. You know, the indeterminate varieties, when they start reaching the end of their cycle, they're not gonna look very pretty. So, our eggplant, this was a poor place to put the eggplant. In retrospect, I thought it would get enough of the afternoon sun moving over here, but it is not. So next year, our eggplants will be planted somewhere else. We also had put in our determinate early neck varieties of yellow squash down through here, and of course those were done 1st of June. Really, they don't last long, but you get a whole lot of fruit off of them. I'm bringing that up because I feel like this area down here, that's a good, you know, I don't know, 15, 20 feet worth of garden space that we just we're not able to use a whole lot this year. So that's an improvement we're definitely going to make next year. I think this bottom row next year is going to be all of our cucumbers. And then we won't use a trellis here next year. We'll put, you know, we'll probably have tomatoes all the way through here, with this top row up here being cucumbers. I'm sorry, not cucumbers. We'll probably do sweet potatoes, tomatoes, and then down there we'll probably do cucumbers. That way the trellises and such are on the bottom end. We will continue to utilize this cattle panel though for our winter squash. And the only winter squash we've decided to grow next year are the butternut, just because we like them the most. So that sort of answers a lot of the questions we had going into this year. Here's some more. You can see this potato bucket is also doing really well. So we're kind of pleased with it. These Primrose and Leslie's loofahs, these guys have, it seems like in the last few days, have just exploded. And a lot of this is going to happen, right? You have really, really terrible weather, and then it turns off nice for a week, and the plants respond very positively. You can see there are some like leaves in here I'll have to get in. You know, I'll have, I don't know, 8-9 hours worth of excess maintenance, but that happens whenever you're not in the garden for a few days. So, and then down here we also have some more potatoes. So again, we're really hoping these buckets work out for potatoes so that I don't have to dig next year. I don't like it. Well, we had shown earlier, we did go through and all of the blackberries were done, and they were just getting scorched. So we went through and we took out a lot of the dead brambles and stuff on the back side of it. And because of the rain, we're getting a lot of new shoots coming up out of the blackberry area. So that's cool. This area right here was where our ground cherries were. We had to stop watering because of the drought. We didn't want to use too many resources. So we stopped watering these ground cherries, and they shriveled up and died really quick. So, did you get a new stick, Boo? She's excited too that she can get outside. It feels pretty good this morning, so she's been out able to run around quite a bit. So that's good for Boo. Now over here in the top garden, again, this is one that we did go ahead and weed as we went and water as well, but this up here, we put in another loofah, and they're doing pretty good. You can see we're getting quite a bit of fruit from those. I just hope with this upcoming weather that it doesn't scorch them. So again, we're gonna have to be really cognizant of watering and that sort of stuff. But and then through here, you can see these guys were all burned up and looking terrible, but a week's worth of decent weather and some water did them really well. As you can see, I did not weed for the better part of a week and a half, and we got the rain, so everything's a bit out of control. Take a step in here real fast. Now down here is where we had our potatoes. Now all of the potatoes have died off, which, you know, that happens, and that happened last year about this same time, and we went through and dug them up. This time I went through and I put a shovel in the ground, like right over here, and there were quite a few potatoes, but the dirt was so hard, I actually broke one of my shovels. So I got a pitchfork, took it out, and it looked like that was gonna happen too. So I stopped and I waited for the rain. So tomorrow I'm gonna go through and try to dig these up. I have zero idea how well our potatoes did this year with the stupid heat and the drought, and potatoes don't do super well in those. So I'm anticipating having much less than what we anticipated at the beginning of the year. But you can see Leslie's flowers are doing really well. Her sunflowers they're starting to come up. I don't know the names of the rest of them, but our bees are loving it, and they're keeping the pollinators in, so that's good. This bed here, this was purple holes, and we got a lot of purple holes out of them. You can see we're still popping up, you know, like a bloom from time to time. But, you know, I mean, you know, it'll sit here for a week and a half, and you'll get like maybe a few beans. So at this point, it's just time to go ahead and take this out. So this week we're going to do that as well. We'll take all of these out. I'm also going to take out these bush beans. Now, the reason for that is the sun scorched a lot of them. We also got a lot of them eaten up by the grasshoppers. But more important than that is we got a whole like little middle spot here that just didn't even come up. You know, they just got burned up is what happened. They came up and the sun got them and they shriveled and went down. So with the size of this bed, what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to pull all of this out. I'm going to fill it up all the way to the top of this, and this is going to be where we plant our carrots for the fall. And we'll be planting carrots in about 3 or 4 weeks. So I just don't, it's not worth really worrying about these. I'd like to get them out, get this bed prepped, and let it sit so that it has time to sort of, so the microbes have a chance to sort of start breaking down and settling in, and we'll get the best carrots that we can possibly get. Our ground cherries, you'll have to excuse me, I'm still a bit under the weather, so if I cough or sniffle or whatever, you'll understand why, but I appreciate your patience in advance. These ground cherries, they have started bouncing back a little bit. Now they're getting, you can see they're starting to get flowers back on them, and they're starting to get these nice big berries. But we went about a week to where it was doing its thing, where you would go through, you know, you'd go through to try to look underneath and pull up the ground cherries, but instead of actually having a ground cherry in the husk, it was just kind of mouse shapen, and you know, it wasn't firm and supple. So we just took that and we just took those and threw them away. So we're hoping that with a change of pace, our ground cherries come back to being what we expect out of them. My basil, after just a week, look at this, being sick for, you know, a week and not being out here. Look how much of those. And these are things I just trim off every day. So this is another thing I'll have to come out and do and trim all those off. It won't be long, and we'll be cutting off large stems of our basil to dry for the winter. Back on our, you know, determinate v indeterminate, these Roma tomatoes right here are a determinate variety. Most of them are. Most Roma tomatoes are a determinate variety. And you can see you will get small amounts of flowers in here after a little bit. And so after, you know, we're going into 4 months of, I'm sorry, 3 months of them being in the ground, 4 months since they started sprouting. So these guys are on their way out. So the reason I bring that up is we're going to allow these to go, and if we get any extra Roma tomatoes, that's perfect. We don't have any more room for tomatoes though. We've already put up our share for the winter, so that's fantastic. The reason I bring that up is if we find out that we need more pickles, or if somebody comes by and takes a bunch out of the refrigerator and we feel like we want to make more for next year, what we'll end up doing is we'll plant, I'll just build a quick trellis in here, and we'll go through and have a smaller round of pickling cucumbers in here. You know, and you can, if you get them in now, you can pick them, you know, probably up until the end of September, early October, before the sun kind of, before there's not enough sun for them to ripen on the vine. Over here, our squash that we put in, now these are also a determinate variety of yellow squash, but they're not the early varieties, right? So we'll get yellow squash out of here as long as the weather cooperates and it doesn't get too hot. So we should get a bit more yellow squash, which we're really looking forward to. And if we don't, you know, that's fine. We had the seeds and it was worth trying anyway. Over here are the Beefmaster tomatoes, and they suffered a lot through the heat. You can see that poor basil plant over there. We had birds in here eating on them, and the bird got on it and pushed over my basil plant. So I'll either stake him up or take him out. I'm not sure yet. So we also had on this basil, you can also see that there's a lot of the flowers on it that we'll need to take out. But the encouraging sign, the reason I wanted to show you, is our Beefmasters here, they are an indeterminate variety of tomatoes. So ever since this rain turned, we have got a mass amount of blooms on there. We'll find out in the next couple days if the blooms set, and if so, I'm going to be really excited. I'll probably put in a couple more stakes and start getting them more tied up. If they don't set, then I'll probably just go through and take all of these out. As much as I love the beefsteak tomatoes of course are my favorite thing. That's the reason I started gardening. But if we don't get more of them, I'll go ahead and just take them out so that whenever I'm prepping the rest of the beds, I can get this bed ready for the fall as well. We won't plant anything in this fall, but at least I can have it ready and have it already start processing. But we're getting so many cherry tomatoes that we don't really need the larger beefsteak tomatoes right now. What's going on, Red? That's our favorite rooster. He's way cooler than the other one. So let's go take a look real fast up here at the pallet garden. It's still doing really well. We are still getting cantaloupe. We still haven't gotten any watermelons. They're just getting bigger and bigger. They're just not quite ready to pull. And again, I did talk to a guy. Apparently watermelons are kind of known for having leaf issues, but it doesn't really hurt the plant. So, all right, I'll take that. I don't know if you can see it. There's a large watermelon back over there. It just keeps growing and growing. Not time to come off, but cantaloupes and cantaloupes and cantaloupes. I think last week we ended up pulling like 5 cantaloupe altogether. I was supposed to get out here and cover our corn beds last week, but I didn't. So I'll get that done here in the next few days. You can see we're starting to get tassels, so that's a good sign on our corn. So the bees kind of like those tassels, which is, I didn't realize that bees like corn so much. And then I didn't pick these last week, so these banana peppers are just everywhere in here. So this is something I'll be picking, and we tried to pickle them. We tried them and they were bitter. They were not very good. When I say pickle them, we used the fermenting method, not the cooking pickling method on these. So we'll probably end up, canning some of them, in a pickle brine, that sort of stuff. But I would like to have some of them frozen because I tried to make a pasta sauce out of these and it was absolutely phenomenal. And I read that if you freeze them, when you take them out in the wintertime, they're a lot easier to make the sauce out of because they come out kind of mush and you can just saute them down and then put an immersion blender and they're ready to go. So we're going to try that. But of course, peppers have been a massive, massive boon for us. Now, this is what I was the most concerned about, was our kale. And it doesn't look like our kale got ate up by anything. We did have a few leaves that are sort of burned up, and that happens from time to time. But they're good. My uncle came by yesterday and took all of these cayenne peppers. When I say all, I mean not even close to all of them. He picked a big old bucket of them and said, you know what, you can have all the rest of them. So I will take all the rest of them. He took the red ones. I'll take all these green ones and I will put them in apple cider vinegar. I put that stuff on everything. I love it. It's not spicy, but it has a good flavor to it. So it's right up my alley. Swiss chard, still able to eat it every day. It's fantastic. We're loving it. This weather has really perked up our Swiss chards. You can see these guys from last week. They've come along really well. The parsley, while it's still getting a bit burned, it's doing a lot better since the weather changed. And now we come over to our cherry tomatoes, and these guys are just loaded. But you can see, just not clearing them out for a week, they ended up getting kind of, you can see that blight on it. So this week, a major goal is to clean all this out, get it tied up, and then of course, it's still getting blooms on it. So hopefully if we take care of this guy and do it correctly, we should have cherry tomatoes through the end of October. Look at all these blooms over here. See this? Tomatoes for days. I got to get out here and pick. Well, as always, I would like to say thank you to all you folks that have made it here to the end of the video. We really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a like. Until next time, I hope that all you folks take care of yourselves. Peace.